the Madman!
Welcome to the custom cards of the week. Let's begin with the King, which causes all he touches to turn into gold. It's Cursed King, mytheas. 9 mana, 8/6, battlecry. Transform all other minions into coins that return to their owner's hand. Design 2 stars, balance 2 stars. So I'll tackle this one from 2 different directions. The first one, and probably the more important part, is the design. Is it okay for all classes to have access to a hard board clear? Answer, I think no, which means that no matter how much this was balanced, I don't think it would be healthy in the game for like a class such as Druid, which is supposed to be weak to being able to take care of the board. There are some things that can't be neutral because some classes just should not be able to do them remotely well at all. However, on the thought that this card could be a class card, and that would be a relatively simple fix, and I think the idea of the card is cool, I'm actually going to bump design up to 3 stars and say that this could be a class card. Rogue makes sense as a class that turns minions into coins, for example. Anyways, the way that I would balance it, and I think it is too overpowered as is, the drawback of giving your opponent coins and the drawback of this being symmetrical is both not compelling enough to like make this much stronger than Gigafin. So that's why it has the balance of 2 stars. I do think this would be a worthy 10 mana card because the effect's that strong. And even at a 10 mana, like perhaps it should move down to a 5/5. But you could, that's like my baseline, and then it's a very hard board clear, and it'll give you like some presence on the board. That seems like it should be worth somewhere around 10. Multiclasser, maenna. It's a neutral legendary, 5 mana, 4/5, battlecry, discover 2 hero powers, combine them. In the case that you target with both hero powers, they both target the same thing. Amusingly, the author has thought about the priest pick plus the mage pick, which does change into restore 2 health and deal 1 damage to the same minion. Very amusing. Design 5 stars, balance 5 stars. I like it. I think it's a worthy take on Justicar Trueheart, which was a neutral card that I liked very much way back in the day. It's obviously a buff on Justicar, which was a 6 mana 6/3, which upgraded your hero power. This one combines 2 together and is 1 mana less expensive. This is meant for the value deck that actually uses hero powers throughout the game to gain value on the opponent, and seems good to me. I think it could possibly be a little bit stronger. Could be a 5 mana 5/5. Value over time has certainly decreased in value. The incremental value that matters isn't this incremental anymore. It's quite a bit more. Next up, we got a Rogue Decoy Secret. 2 mana, secret, when an enemy attacks your hero, summon a 0/6 plush with your hero has stealth. Design 2 stars, balance 3 stars. I really like the idea of the card because it draws upon the ninja lore, where as you're attacking the ninja, bam, it was actually a decoy, and the real ninja is nowhere to be seen. However, I had to give this a design of 2 because it was very unclear on when an enemy attacks your hero. Like, does the attack still go through? As is, it does go through, which I think doesn't make very much sense flavor-wise. I think it would make more sense if your attack was redirected to the decoy. But also, what is problematic is your hero has stealth is a big deal. If you were to be able to protect your decoy somehow, then you would theoretically be invincible. And there's a non-theoretical way to protect yourself, which is playing the jailer. And while that may not be as big a problem in Wild, if it is a problem, it is a problem in Standard. And I think you would quickly see Decoy Rogue with Jailer taking some pretty easy games. Because all you would need to do is play the Jailer and then at one point play Decoy. And any deck that has to attack you to win doesn't win. Now you can make the argument you can just print this after the Jailer rotates. From that perspective, I think that you know, there's a lot of different versions of decoy, which matter, and it's hard to figure out a way that this card isn't bad in. If it were just summon a decoy that is redirecting the attack, then the problem is to not make it, too much like Noble Sacrifice, where instead of summoning a 2/1, you're summoning a 0/6. It's a little bit hard to do that, but it could just read when an enemy attacks your hero, it instead attacks a 0/8 plush with taunt or something. And that does lose some of the flavor of this decoy, but I think that's still fine. Next we got Archgriller Khadgar. Mage Legendary, 3 mana 2/2. Whenever your fire spells deal damage, summon an elemental with stats equal to the damage dealt. Design 3 stars, balance 5 stars. So how does it work? Well, if you flame strike your opponent's board and they've got, say, 5 minions, then you're going to summon 5 5/5s. Khadgar is pretty flexible and is a throw into fire mage spells. I found it a little bit weak in terms of design. I did think that the author's idea that they would be called Grillentor Elemental was pretty good, but it's just you cast the fire spells and you make big guys. So yeah, okay. I didn't think that would be overpowered in any way, nor underpowered. It's like, yeah, that's fine. Okay. Next up, we got a Druid weapon, Gahanir. 3 mana, legendary Druid weapon, 0/3. After you cast 3 nature spells, restore 8 health to your hero. Design 4 stars, balance 3 stars. So I'll first say that I am in favor of the classes which have healing. Druid, Paladin, Priest, Shaman, the ones you traditionally think of having healing from the World of Warcraft game. I think it would be cool if healing were a more major part of those class identities. This, however, is too much healing, and that's why, dock to design a bit. After your opponent restores 40 health from this card, you're gonna not like this card. Maybe like design 4 was even generous, but it was an easy enough problem to fix and was balanced as well. I think it's currently too overpowered. One, I think it should lose durability for each, after each health heal. That would cap the healing on this to 24, which I think may still be too much. 3 mana for 24 healing is quite a lot. Maybe you cap it at 6 health to your hero as well. Somewhere in that range is what I'm thinking. Next we got Nemsy Necrofizzle. A 2 mana 2/3 with start of game. Your hero power affects the enemy hero. Note that the author intends it to basically read as affects the enemy hero instead, which should be, a word change. Design 3 stars, balance 5 stars. So the first thing I'm going to say is I do really like the idea of Nemsy Necrofizzle, which is a very prominent hero portrait in the game. I am in favor of her becoming an actual card, and she would probably need a pretty big effect. And this is a big effect, which you always see in play. Like, immediately, right off the bat, you're going to be like, oh, it's a Nemsy Necrofizzle deck. And Nemsy feels kind of like a whimsical character, and this one, makes the opponent draw cards, which fits in my mind with her, frivolous personality. So the flavor is quite good here, but the problem is this would make Nemsy into just pure evil. And while you may think that's a plus, it's just a little too evil. So I gave the design a 3 because I think it would prove to be very unfun. The evidence here is Curse Lock is a deck that's probably been decried as one of the more unfun decks. Players don't like the inevitability of getting cursed, which also sometimes gets rid of your cards by milling you. But mostly they don't like the inevitability that the curses stack up in damage and then slowly kill you. Nemsy actually is almost exactly like curses in that the life tap eventually kills you, but fatigue also eventually kills you, and you also mill the occasional card with Nemsy. And if this were to come out with proper mill support, that would be an even more annoying deck. And Nemsy is supposed to be annoying, so that's kind of cool, but this may possibly just be one facet of Hearthstone that we're not supposed to explore. One of the potential problems is it's too polarizing, in that mill decks just stomp all over control decks, because control decks have a really hard time playing on all of their cards, and Nemsy will just single-handedly nearly win the game against control decks by playing a control deck with Nemsy. And at the same time, your hero power, like spending 2 mana to give your opponent a card, that's just ridiculously weak. They're just going to kill you. So, too polarizing because you either win or you lose. And there's very few games where it would be close. I basically don't think that a new playstyle for Warlock, I don't think this would be a healthy playstyle given how much people disliked the Curse Lock. And I'm going to say something, by the way. Me personally, I had no problems with Curse Lock. And I actually thought that Curse Lock was kind of an interesting take on this inevitability, because it gave you the option to pay mana in order to play the curse so you wouldn't get damaged. So there's that strategic element and some interactivity with the inevitableness. But it looks like that proved to not be true enough. Next up, we got 3 Wishes. Mage legendary spell, 6 mana, Tri-Spell, wish for the perfect card. So Tri-Spell is not actually a mechanic in the game, but it goes off of Duo Spell? What was twin spell, and it would do pretty much what you would expect. After you cast the first one, you would have a twin spell, and then after you cast the second one, you would just have a wish for the perfect card. Now, 6 mana is a lot of mana to pay. Design 3 stars, balance 1 star. It's 6 mana to get a good card, and because you're getting the 3 wishes card back, it's almost like draw 2. So you're drawing the card that gives you more wishes, which is a bad card at 6 mana, and you're drawing the perfect card. But after you cast 3 wishes, you're not going to have a lot of mana left, so at most you're going to get the 4 mana board clears, if there are many of those. Furthermore, the way that Zephrys worked is by looking at the basic set, basic and classic set. The problem is that now there's core sets and they rotate each time. Zephrys was hard enough to program on, but imagine programming for a card that in standard would have 1 core set, and then there would be a rotation of the core set, and they'd have to completely reprogram all of the cards and what you get offered to them with 3 wishes. That's a lot of work for 1 card. But it might be worth it because it's so cool. Like, I could see a control mage spawn off of the card would be like a value-oriented mage deck that tried to answer your opponent's stuff. Ultimately, I think this is a cool idea, but not so cool that it's worth the hours of time required to program this card in. Next up, mix it up with a meme. You got Ogre Giant, 8 mana, 6/7. Costs 1 less for each Boulderfist Ogre in your hand. If you have 2 Boulderfist Ogres in your hand, it costs 6. So you can play a 6 mana, 6/7. Wow, meme. 2 stars. It's a reluctant 2 stars that I give it. I think enough people in chat chuckled that I'd be like, okay, I guess it deserves a 2. If I were to purely rate it, humor is hard to rate, but I would give this a 1 myself. I think that, for me, I find the meme cards better if they actually have any semblance of playability, and, as long as there's something beyond just the obvious joke. And the obvious joke of, oh, it's just more Boulderfist Ogre if you have Boulderfist Ogre in your hand. It's like, okay. But I think it would be more funny if it was like a 6 mana, 6/7, and then would actually have an incentive to play Boulderfist Ogre in your hand, because you could potentially play 4 mana, 6/7. Dang. Also, this is a giant, so perhaps 8 mana, 8/8 would have been more appropriate, since giants have the 8/8 stat line. And it could certainly say cost 1 less for each ogre you played. And the ogre tribe could be introduced into the game. Next up, Space Mission, a Shaman Paladin dual class card. 0 mana spell, give all friendly minions Divine Shield. When they lose it, freeze them. That's really cool. Hey, that's so cool, it's the trump card of the week. Design 5 stars, balance 3 stars. I really like the idea that the card evokes. You give all of your minions this cool little bubble, Divine Shield, and when they lose that bubble in the coldness of space, they're frozen, and it combines the Shaman freeze of the Paladin Divine Shield very well, and there's even a card to base this off of, Righteousness. Can you believe this card used to exist? Righteousness, famously overcosted at 5 mana. This is a big discount on giving all of your friendly minions Divine Shield. I think that putting it at 0 was too ambitious, and I think the true mana cost lies somewhere between 1 or 2. Try it out at 1, see if it works out. It's a cool card, so I think pushing the mana cost would be cool. But if 1 mana proves to be too powerful, 2 mana, I could see it in both Shaman and Paladin. They're the classes that have a bunch of tokens. They're hero power mix guys, and you tend to have more people with Divine Shield when you're playing Shaman or Paladin. But yeah, really, really cool flavor. And someday, there could certainly be a space theme in Hearthstone. This would also work for an underwater theme. Finally, we've got Genju, a Shaman legendary minion. 3 mana 4/4. Start of game. Your minions have all minion types this game. They cost 1 more, up to 10. Interesting. Design 5 stars, balance 5 stars. This is the type of card that, if printed, you'd need to carefully curate all the neutral cards and all the Shaman cards during the time that this is in standard. But you could, as a result, come up with quite an interesting Shaman deck. We'd probably be talking interesting as in the level of Shutterwalk levels of interesting. It wouldn't necessarily be a combo deck, but it probably would because, minions costing 1 more makes you very strongly disincentivize running minions. If you were to run minions, it would be minions that had a huge payoff based on minion type, but probably ideally you want to play spells that summon minions, which would then have all types. I am appreciative of the fact that the author noted that this was a very strong start of game and gave it an appropriate trade-off that all minions cost 1 more, and realized that there was potential to build several interesting, decks and like potential card designs down the line for an all-minion Shaman deck. So those are some cool cards I'm looking forward to seeing next week's batch.